All right, you guys, so chapter 9, Higher Invertebrates. This chapter's got 74 slides, so we're gonna do this over two videos, okay? We're gonna split it in half. And even though there's a lot of the first few slides that are just, chapter overview slides, we're still gonna cut it off right in the middle. You know, I like to be even. 37 slides, okay? So we'll do 37 first slides, first video, 37 slides on the second video, okay? I hope you guys are doing well. I really miss you guys. And I got lots of specimens for you guys to look at as we're doing this. What I'll do is when we get to videos, I will pause, give you guys seconds to stop the video so you can go and watch the videos. Just click on the link on the PowerPoint. You know the videos are fun. You know I try and get good videos, so watch the videos. But then after the pause, so if I look weird, I pause because I'm doing that, give you time to go watch it, and then we'll keep going with the lecture. Good? All right. Chapter 9, Higher Invertebrates. Key concepts. Lots of them. Lots. This is a huge chapter. Phylomollusca. This is section 1. So, Phylomollusca, Latin for soft. These are your chitons, your snails, your clams, your octopus, and your squids. So, a huge group. Okay, very, very diverse. One of the most successful groups, to say the least. They have soft bodies, usually covered by a calcium carbonate shell. It can be such as this. It can be such as this. We have lots of examples, right? Bell, in case you guys missed the bell, we still have them running. Wide range of sizes, everything from microscopic to the giant squid that's 43 feet long. That's right there, the giant squid being worked on by a human, all right? With many, many different lifestyles and many different relationships to humans. This is a chitin right here. They're really, really, really cool. Very, very, they can be very colorful. They can also be very bland. Just depends on the species and locations in the world. All right. The molluscan body's got two major parts. Apologies. You got the head, foot. The head has the mouth and the sensory organs. The foot is used for locomotion, just like for us. So the foot is the very muscular part. I'll explain that in a minute. And then you've got the visceral mass. That's where your circulatory part is, your digestive, respiratory, excretory, reproductive, and systems are all located. Now, I want to point this out. Respiratory, they have gills, right? Just like fish, they actually do have gills. Mantle is going to be your protective tissue that's going to cover the soft parts. It's also going to form the shell. So the mantle is what's going to release and produce that shell. This is the inside of a nautilus shell. Okay, can you really see the compartments? They're really cool. We'll go into more detail on that a little bit later. Extends from the visceral mass and hangs over each side of the body, forming space between the mantle and the body. That's called your mantle cavity. Got a really cool picture of this right here, showing you all the different parts. Now, depending on what goes on, like I said in the text message, I'm going to hold off dissections as much as I can. But if we're not able to get back together, I really don't know, guys, really don't. What I'll do is I'll be coming in and I'll be dissecting the animals, and I'll record it while I'm dissecting, so you'll still get to at least see that, okay? And if the specimens I wanted to dissect aren't here, then I'll find really good videos for you guys to look at, okay? No matter what, you'll get to see this stuff, I promise, all right? Making the best out of it. All right, guys? So, you've got the visceral mass right here, like we said. So you see the reproductive parts, you see the digestive, the respiratory, the circulatory as well, all right? And then the head, foot, that's right down there. So those are the two main parts. Kind of cool. Now, the radula. I love this thing. We talked about this before. Remember I talked to you about the shell that you'll find at the beach. It's got that perfect little hole at the very top of the shell. That's thanks to the radula, because the radula right here actually is the tongue that has all these teeth on it. And what happens is you'll have a shell that'll have a little snail that comes up to it, and it just keeps licking in that one spot. And it licks it, licks it, licks it, licks it, licks it, and it wears away, forming that perfect little circle. And then it eats the actual insides of the shell beneath it. So, radula is a ribbon of tissue containing teeth. They're not found in bivalves, so that's the one exception to that group. Pretty cool. Very, very important. Molluscan shell really has 3 parts to it. Periostracum, that's going to protect your shell from dissolution, so from breaking down, from any kind of boring organisms. Not boring as in you're falling asleep, but boring in the sense that it's actually going through and piercing through the shell. That kind of boring, okay? Then you've got the prismatic layer, that's your calcium carbonate, makes up the bulk of the shell. And then the nacreous layer, nacre in French, okay? That's also made of calcium carbonate, CaCO3, secreted constantly, all right? And it accounts for the increased shell. That's what we like to call mother of pearl. That's what you see right here. That's that shininess right there that you see, okay? That's that nacreous layer. Trying to find another good oh yeah, beautiful. That bright shiny pink right there, that's the nacreous. It's it's constantly being released by the actual visceral mass, constantly releasing it, all right? Not the visceral mass, by the mantle, so it constantly releases it, so it gets thicker and thicker, and the shell gets thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker, okay? But it's always shiny, because it constantly has that secretion on it. Really, really pretty. That's what we call mother of pearl. Now, how do we form a pearl? Ooh, I don't want to skip that part. So pearl is literally a little piece of sand that got in there and got stuck, and the nacreous layer just grew on top of that sand, and it grew and grew and it grew and it grew and it grew. So the poor little piece of sand is just the pearl is actually an irritation for that particular oyster shell, and it just grows and 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 grows, and just grows that nacreous layer on top of that sand around it. That's all it is. Chitin, you've got 8 shell plates. It attaches tightly to rocks in the intertidal zone because they have a shell on the top of it. So remember that first one was really, really brightly colored. This one, not so much, right? Just depends. So here's that top plate, and on the bottom of it, it's just like the bottom of a snail. That's the kind of visual I want you to have. It'll scrape the algae off the rocks. You'll see them scooting around, and they'll just sit, they eat the algae. They just move like this, and they eat the algae as they walk along. So it's basically a snail, except instead of having a round shell on its back, it's got 8 plates of shells on its back. Scaphalopods, also known as elephant tusk, you've got toe shells. The shell's open, and they'll have the foot that protrudes from the opening. It'll go through, water enter and exit at small posterior, smaller ends. They're found in intertidal zones all the way down to several thousand meters in depth. Real small little guys. Just cool to know about. Now we have our gastropods, meaning stomach foot. You've got the unshelled ones that do not have a shell. That's your nudibranchs, or a univalve shell. They're going to have, gastropods in general have an operculum. Those of you who have Miss Bureau, you have probably seen her with those beautiful earrings that are actually made of the operculum. They're beautiful white earrings. Every time I see them, they're just so pretty. And that's what it's actually made of. And it's this little opening that protects it. And when you get a live snail in, actually take it and you kind of, it's a little mean, but you can kind of flip it and whoop, they pop in and they'll take your operculum and they'll close up. And it's actually to protect the meat, the animal inside, from getting eaten. It's really kind of neat. All right, it's that right there. You can see the operculum right there. And if it flicks it, it'll bring it, the whole animal will come inside the shell and close the operculum on top of it, protects it. Kind of cool. Nudibranchs, they are your naked gastropods. All right. Now, nudibranchs tend to be very, very colorful. Remember, in nature, what does color mean? Bye-bye, get away from me, right? Don't touch me, don't eat me. If you do, you'll die, right? Usually that's what it means, or you'll regret it. That is no different with these guys. They're not all poisonous, but most are. So they have the serrata right here. This is actually their gills. This is how they breathe. They'll actually project off of their body. Now these guys will also have stinging cells that they collect when they eat cnidaria. Cnidaria is the scientific term for jellyfish and anemones. So they can sit there and they can actually eat jellyfish and suck as they're digesting the jellyfish, or the anemones, they'll actually absorb those stinging cells and pass it into their bodies. And anything that comes up and tries to ease their serrata, they'll get stung with those stinging cells. It's really pretty cool. Nudibranchs are so pretty, so colorful. Before you even ask, there is no point even trying to keep it in the tank. They are not made to be kept in captivity. It's just a matter of when they're gonna die. If you go back and you watch Finding Nemo, that scene, that classic scene when they are swimming right above the school, or they're getting ready to go to school and they're swimming above the reef, you see this really weird brightly colored animal. That's a nudibranch. Classic scene. Go back, watch Finding Nemo when Marlin's taking Nemo to school, and he just one scene. God, I can close my eyes, I can visualize it. You're right between two sets of rocks, and there's this really pretty, I want to say it's purple nudibranch right beneath you, and I want to say it's that one. It's really pretty. Anyways, all right, reproduction and development in gastropods. They actually have separate sexes, though some are hermaphrodites. They have internal fertilization. Some will release the eggs directly into the sea. You have two types of swimming larvae. Now, I cannot tell you how happy I am that we did that exposure of different things to marine biology lab, right, with the microscopes and everything, considering the situation we're in now. And hopefully you guys remember seeing the villager larva microscope. So that's one of your larval stages. The first one before that is a trochophore. It's a primitive, that'll be from the primitive egg. It's the first stage. Then the villager, so you'll go from primitive egg to the swimming, it'll just kind of float around. Then the villager can travel actually pretty great distance. These are cilia that it actually uses for locomotion. There's the gut. We've got a primitive shell right there. You can see the beginning of that shell, right? That curve right here. That's what this one is. You can see the cilia. It's real pretty. I don't know. I think it's pretty. Some will be without a planktonic stage. So it just kind of depends. Some are free floating. Some will stay at the bottom. Benthic. Class Bivalvia. These have two. The shells will be divided into two. This is your clams, your oysters, your mussels, your scallops, your shipworms. Shipworms are the ones that are going to go and embed themselves in the ship and actually cause huge damage to boats and ships, obviously. Ships just being a very, very, very large boat. Their anatomy, they don't have a head or a radula. Basically, we've taken the shell and we've compressed it laterally. So I've got a really good little one right here. Right. One of my kiddos gave me this, and it's taped on the back and the front, but there you go. You've got two halves of it, right? So think of an oyster, think of a mussel, right? The two shells, the two halves are attached dorsally. So this is the dorsal end right here, right? This is the dorsal. This is the ventral. Again, hopefully we get to do it in person, dissections. If not, I'll show that to you guys. Then you've got the umbo. That's the oldest part of the shell. That's where the hinge is, right here. So the shell starts from here and grows out. So this is the newest part of the shell, where the ventral side is. And then you've got the abductor muscle. If you've eaten mussels, the part that's left back, that's your abductor muscle. That's what's the hardest part to cut. If you eat raw oysters or even oysters on the barbecue, that's the part you have to cut. That's the abductor muscle. Large muscle that closes the two shells. That is what starfish are incredibly strong and able to pry open. So what starfish will do, if I've got a shell sitting like this, like an oyster, the starfish will come and it'll wrap itself around the oyster, and the tube feet on the starfish will pry the shell open, and then through that stomach opening, the starfish will invert its stomach into the oyster and then release digestive enzymes, eat the inside of the oyster. Well, now this is dead, so the oyster shell just stays open, and then the starfish sucks its stomach back into its own body, and then it climbs away and takes off. That's it. they've got siphons in order to have water filter through themselves. Sorry. So right here, you've got a really cool gooseneck clam. We've got 2 videos right here. Unattached surface dwellers contract adductor muscles to escape predators. It's got clams and scallops. So I'm going to give you a second to look at this video. You'll see really cool scallops. It's completely embedded in the ground. You can't even barely see it. And then this video right here, its video is not 2 hours and 17 minutes. Steenhatchee, Florida is 2 hours and 17 minutes away from here, and you can go scallop fishing in late summer. And it's just a video that shows you what you can do there. So take a couple of minutes, go watch both those videos. Boring bivalves like shipworms can burrow into the wood or stone because they've got these microscopic teeth. So right here, these are the worms going through it. These are holes that they've created. These are the termites of the ocean. They cause great commercial damage and cost, of course, because of the damage. Majority have separate sexes. Their fertilization will occur in the water column. So basically, they release the sperm and the eggs in the water column. The sperm, thanks to proteins, find their way. They'll have their first stage will be the trochophore, and then the second will be the villager. Some are hermaphroditic, such as scallops, oysters, and shipworms. Class Cephalopoda, named after the foot modified into the head. So this means head-footed. Most, not all, most do not have shells, lack the shell. They've got tentacles that project to capture prey, for defense, for reproduction, and even sometimes for locomotion. Okay. Types of cephalopods. You got the nautiloids. That's your nautilus. All right. Nautilus will actually swim in this manner. They'll have the tentacles right here, and they'll swim like this. It's really, really, really cool to see. This right here is their eye. Okay. This whole part of their body is soft, and then the rest of the animal goes through the rest of the shell. This is the shell. Here's a cross section of the shell. So you see each one is individually chambered, which controls your buoyancy. During the day, there would be a great depth, and at nighttime they come up. It's really kind of cool. Large coiled shell separated into gas-filled chambers. Siphuncle is a corded tissue that connects all the chambers. So if you look right here, you'll see the hole, and that's the opening through which the siphuncle goes through. The animal is only in this last one right here. The head has 60 to 90 tentacles. The jet propulsion that they use for locomotion is amazing. Diurnal migrations come to surface at night, dwell at the bottom during the day. They'll eat hermit crabs and scavenge at the bottom. And the food is stored in their crop just like a bird. Here's a good, really cool picture of it. Pretty cool. All right. I have a lot of videos on here, including some that are not visible at the very bottom. Please take the time to look at them. These are really cool. Cuttlefish. They have 8 arms and 2 tentacles with an internal large shell, the cuttlebone. If you've ever had a bird as a pet, and you had this weird little shape of a shell that looks like a shell bone, that's a cuttlebone. That's the bone that's found inside these guys. Take the time to watch those videos. They're really cool. The squid. 8 arms, 2 tentacles as well, larger than arms. The tentacles are larger than the arms, sorry. With the suckers and internal shells called the pen. Again, dissection, you'll get to see that. Octopus has 8 arms, no tentacles whatsoever. The sac with the body with no fins. There's another one. They will swim by jet propulsion or by fin undulation. They have the ink gland, which release melanin, which is black ink. Deep squid will release actually a white ink because of deep ocean. Blackness is everywhere. They wouldn't do anything, but if you release white, it's all this light all at once, so it actually causes the opposite. It still would cause a blinding effect. Okay. They've got the most advanced complex nervous system on all invertebrates. These guys are ridiculously smart. I think I've told you the story. They had a video of an octopus in one tank, and its prey in another tank. Every day they came in, the fish in the prey tank would disappear. Every day there'd be one less fish. And they're trying to figure out what it was, so they put a camera and they recorded the octopus opening its own tank lid, climbing out, going across the table, opening the tank lid for the prey, going in, catching its fish, climbing out, closing the lid, going back across the table, climbing back into its own tank, closing its lid, and chilling and waiting until morning. They're crazy, ridiculously smart. They're escape artists. The very first time we went to the Georgia Aquarium, the giant octopus in Australia, the Australia Zoo, escaped through the pipe system back into the open ocean. It was just funny because we were there at the same time. It was the same Finding Dory, I think, came out that year. It was really crazy. It's just, they're really, really, really smart. And you'll just see this right here is one of the octopus, and it's an octopus that will actually make itself look like a flounder. This here it's making itself look like a lionfish, and here it's making itself look like a poisonous sea snake. They're so smart. It's really cool. Watch the videos. Color and shape in cephalopods. Body movements and color changes are used in communication. Chromatophores, they're specialized cells, skin cells with pigment granules. You can have the cuttlefish that'll be swimming around on the beautiful, most beautiful sandy bottom, and then it'll get right over this rocky bottom, and all of a sudden, over the sandy bottom it looks like sand, and then right as soon as it gets over the rocky bottom, it'll look like it has these projections off of its own body. It's crazy, ridiculously cool. And they'll do it in a matter of seconds. And what's crazy is, obviously their eyes are on top of their body, yet they can match the bottom, what the bottom of their body is over, if that makes any kind of sense. Don't know how they're able to do that. When I was at Texas A&M Galveston, I got to go to UT medical branch, and they were using both the nautilus and the cuttlefish in neurological research because of their nervous system being so fast and so efficient. It is used in neurological studies for humans. They're just incredibly smart. So, really, really cool. Their feeding and nutrition is, they're very much carnivores. They've got these beak-like jaws. They do not have radula. I will show you in the dissections, if we don't do it in person, how strong, and when I say a beak, I mean a beak like a dang on parrot, y'all. Super, super, super strong. The diet varies with the habitat and what kind of cephalopod we're talking about. Sexes are separate, often includes very descriptive courtship display. Modified arms used to transfer the spermatophores, which is a packet of sperm, from the male to the female. Some females will incubate the eggs, usually reproduce once, and then they'll die. Annelids, the segmented worms. The bodies are divided into segments. You've got a hydrostatic skeleton. The fluid will actually give them support by pressure. And then they've got these setae, which are small bristles used for locomotion, digging, and projections. So the types of annelids we're talking about are polychaetes, echirians, goniophorans. Yep, that's an interesting word, goniophorans. Alright? Okay. We're almost done with this first half of the video, guys. Polychaetes. There's the most common annelids, traditionally divided into two groups. You're going to have the errant polychaetes. These are the most active. Fireworms. Remember we talked about fireworms in our tank? I told you it's the one type of thing I've ever seen my husband be scared of is fireworms. You even say fireworms, woo! He's going to move his hand so dang on fast. These guys are the ones you do not want to mess with. They, knock on wood, I've never had the unfortunate encounter, but supposedly you touch it and it truly feels like you have just been burned very badly. So those are the most active. Sedentary polychaetes, sessile worms, horseshoe worms. They'll just sit there and chill, and they just open and close. It's real cool. All right.
The horseshoe?
Not yet. It's okay. Feeding and digestion. Predators. They'll filter or suspension feeders. Digestive tract is usually a straight tube. Very similar to earthworm dissection. If you ever had the pleasure of doing that. Deposit feeders, selective and non-selective deposit feeders, whatever falls down, hey, it fell down to me, I'm going to eat it, cool, I'm happy. They have an asexual reproduction through budding or fragmentation. They can regenerate even the head. Most reproduce only sexually. Gametes are released into the water column, so sperm and egg. So when you're swimming in the ocean, just keep remembering what you're swimming along with. Pinacky, the production of pelagic reproductive individual. Swarming of males and females come to the surf at night for mating. Again, think twice about going to the beach at night, and think twice about going to the beach, period. At least right now. Tempunculids, solitary benthic worms, also known as the peanut worms. I hate that so much. Makes me think twice about eating peanuts after I see this picture. I'm sorry if it messed y'all up. They're interesting. They're mostly deposit feeders, as they look like they should be. They'll have this flat proboscis. Proboscis is a fancy schmancy word for nose. And it collects particles. They all have separate sexes, shed gametes into the water column. You're going to hear a lot about that in these next 2 chapters. They live in buried tubes, so this is where it gets kind of cool. The deep ocean sea vents we talk about. We talk about the tube worms down there. That's these guys. These guys can be, I don't know, 3-4 meters long. These are huge, 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 from the floor down to here. Okay, huge. They'll absorb nutrients in seawater or from chemosynthetic bacteria. So instead of photosynthesis, they undergo chemosynthesis. They'll actually produce glucose through the process of sucking up sulfur. It's really kind of cool. Thanks to sulfate. Nematoda. Phylum Nematoda. Nematodes, these are your roundworms. They're the most numerous animals on Earth. There's only 12,000 species, but the numbers are incredibly high. Some are parasitic, some are hermaphroditic, some are scavengers. They're incredibly important in nutrient recycling. They've got a huge predatory-prey relationship and also symbiotic relationships. And we are stopping there for part 1 of chapter 9.